All right, so we left Holy Mother uh, in quite a situation. Thakur has passed away, and she has now gone to uh, back to her home there in Kamarpukur and Dakshineshwar, and for the first time in her 34 years of living, she's living alone now for the first time. And we got a little bit of a clue on how to deal with loss. You know, when Ramakrishna went, she was terribly grief stricken by that. But then she started counting her blessings in her life and discerning about, Thakur, and then practicing some gratitude for the things that she still had. And so we kind of looked at that way of dealing with our own loss, which is, I know nobody lets me be old, but, when I've kind of seen, with Manishananda passing away, and when I said goodbye to my friends in Tucson, as I looked back at them in the driveway, I could see, wow, Gary was in his late 70s, and Bill's looking quite a bit older. And I thought, oh gosh, we're moving into that part of life, where you're not sure every time you say goodbye to somebody, whether it's going to be the last time or not. And a fascinating thing, I'm really old age again. If you're a spiritual seeker, it can be a great blessing, because boy, as you get older, you cannot hide from the fact that everything goes, that nothing lasts here, and that becomes more and more and more adamantly clear in many different ways. And if you can hold on to Mother's feet and through the process, you can understand that it's pure grace, that we're letting go of things that could never get us what we're looking for. We're letting go of things that really never existed in a real way anyway. And it's a really perfect time for turning to the divine. Plus, you get lots of time. You retire and you've got lots of time on your hands. And if you've got a good practice going into it, this is why Thakur says it's so important when you're younger to establish these habits. Because when you get to be an older person, of course, this is all assumption on my part, but when you get to be an older person, you just don't have the energy to establish these important practices and habits that will still your mind and give you peace. I think that's why the Bible says the wages of sin is death. It's that you if you've been turning to the world for all of your satisfaction, when you get old and you can no longer go out and seek that satisfaction, you're left with nothing. You lay there in a bed, or not, but you lay there. At some point, all of us pretty much get bound to a home, if not to a bed. Your world gets very small. And for someone who's done their work, who's done their practice, that doesn't matter at all, because you've got a universe inside that you've touched and that you've learned to live in and explore and find your satisfaction in. And actually, you find that inner world is bigger and beautiful for us. So do your practice. Make great habits and invest, because there will come a time in your life where you will be so grateful that you kept going, that you kept pushing. All right, so we start here tonight with Mother losing her monthly pension. Holy Mother was supposed to receive a monthly pension of 7 rupees from the Dakshineshwar temple authorities, but Ram Lal and the temple cashier Dinu told Trilokya Nath Bishwas, the owner, that Holy Mother was being taken care of by the master's devotees. As a result, Trilokya stopped her monthly pension. However, the master had left a small amount of money with Balaram. Balaram had invested this money and he gave the interest of 5 or 6 rupees to Holy Mother every month. The master's monastic disciples were themselves struggling to survive and were not aware of Holy Mother's difficult situation. This is one of those things that's really hard to understand, about this, that how really chaotic and disorganized it became after the master's passing. It took them quite some time to get things together. But we can take from that a good lesson for ourselves, that if you don't invest in getting to know the circumstances of the people that Mother has put around you, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, your family, that if you don't invest in being in touch with those people, you won't know when they're in need. So like this situation with Holy Mother, that that the temple was told that she was getting money from the devotees, but in fact the devotees didn't have any money to give her, and so she lost the pension without anything really to replace it. And had somebody really been there, really been in the know about what was going on and what the situations were, that could have, well, I won't say it could have been avoided. Apparently she wanted it that way, but I see in it a lesson for us to be able to develop eyes that see how people are doing and follow up with how they're doing, to keep them in your prayers and to check in with the person to make sure that things are going all right. That's a way. The master's monastic disciples were themselves struggling to survive and were not aware of Holy Mother's difficult situation. In addition, her own mother and brothers were extremely poor and could not help her. Holy Mother had rice from the paddy fields, one of which had been bought by Ramakrishna in the name of Raghuvir, the family deity. She husked that paddy to make rice and grew some spinach and vegetables behind her hut. Sometimes she could not even afford to buy salt. Swami Chetanananda later remarked, "We never dreamed that Mother did not even have enough means to buy salt. Whatever she cooked, she offered to Raghuvir and then ate the prasad. Generally, Orthodox Hindu widows eat one vegetarian meal a day and at night have a light meal of whatever is available, such as sweets or fruits or milk. Holy Mother had only a few saris, which gradually became worn out. Sometimes she patched the cloth or else closed a hole by tying a knot in the fabric. Holy Mother followed Ramakrishna's advice. She lived alone in Kamarpakur. Because she was so shy, she knew only a few neighbors. Prasanamayi of the Laha family, a staunch devotee of the Master, and Dana Kamarani, and the Master's godmother, became Holy Mother's guardians. Either Prasanamayi's maidservant or Dani's sister Shankari stayed with Holy Mother at night so that no one could gossip about her character. Dani's brother ran errands for her. Here comes Jagadish. Yeah, so you see all the devotees pulling together and providing for Holy Mother, taking care of her. You still see that these days. We just lost a long-time devotee in Hollywood, also at Vijay, and it was all the devotees and people around the center that took care of her, that nursed her in her old age, so she was able to pass away in her home. Because people were there taking care of her literally 24/7. So this is the beauty of Mother's Sangha. This love grows and it provides for us and helps us. Life was difficult for a young Hindu widow at that time. An Orthodox Hindu widow was obliged to follow ruthless social rules that forbade her from remarrying. So she wasn't allowed to get married again. She was supposed to live like a nun. She had to wear a white sari, shave her head. She could not wear any jewelry. She could eat one vegetarian meal a day and was required to cook her food with sea salt or rock salt. She was also expected to serve everyone in her husband's joint family as if she were a maidservant. A widow was lucky if she had inherited some money, or if she had children who could take care of her. You see, so it's a very strict environment, especially toward the women, generally toward the women, I'm afraid. And so Holy Mother, while, Thakur kept appearing to her and kept telling her, look, I'm not dead. I've just gone to the other room. So she was allowed to wear her colored sari, and she was allowed to wear her jewelry. And she, didn't shave her head because to her, and not just to her, in reality, she was not a widow. Her husband had appeared to her many times, taken her by the hand, led her places, gave her advice, told her when people were coming, what she should do and how she should initiate. He did all of that teaching after he had left the body. So he came back. I find it very interesting, these avatars, they keep coming back to life. They don't stay gone. Their love really moves them, even after the body falls off. Their love really moves them to stay and support the devotees that were a part of them, a part of their play. Most of the villagers in Kamarpakur were not educated. In addition, they were conservative, narrow-minded, superstitious, unkind, and unsympathetic. My goodness. Wow. In the name of religion, the village leaders followed their traditional caste and social rules and rigorously imposed them on helpless widows. Some leaders of society even used young widows to fulfill their carnal desires. Truly, it was a curse to become a widow in Hindu society in that era. In Kamarpakur, Holy Mother's initial problems were financial, but she soon started to face social difficulties as well. As long as Golap Ma stayed with her, no village woman dared say anything about Holy Mother's lifestyle. But when Golap Ma left for Calcutta, some narrow-minded, conservative village women and men began criticizing Holy Mother. They complained that she did not behave as a Brahmin widow should. She did not shave her head. She wore gold bracelets and a red-bordered sari. Holy Mother later said, "When I left Vrindavan and went to Kamarpakur, the villagers began to gossip about me. I took off my bangles out of fear of public criticism. The master appeared before me and said, 'Don't take off the bangles.' 'Don't you know the Vaishnava Tantra?' I replied, 'No, I don't know anything about the Vaishnava Tantra.' He said, 'This afternoon, Gaurdasi, Gaurima, will come and tell you about it.' Gaurdasi arrived that afternoon, and I told her everything. She began to quote from the scriptures and explained to me, 'Mother, your husband is Chinmaya, pure consciousness. The master is ever present, and you are the goddess Lakshmi. It will bring the world bad luck if you wear a widow's clothing and do not wear your jewelry. According to Vaishnava Tantra, a woman whose husband is Krishna is never a widow.' I put my bangles back on. And this is a redeeming matter here in that harsh Indian culture that Chetanananda just told us about. That you can actually, in a true way, be married to Krishna, and then you don't have to face these harsh rules. And so that allowance, that spiritual ideal, is present even in all of those old traditions. But to know them, and then also to be willing to stand up and present yourself that way. It might be hard for some women in that circumstance. But very interesting time for Holy Mother. So much adjustment, because she had never had to live alone, and really all of this chaos around her right now. It must have been difficult to kind of keep your bearings and to keep going, to deal with your grief at that time, and to be concerned about this new order that was forming, and the young men, all of the disciples of Thakur that were so special to her, that she cared so much about, and losing contact with some of them. And it must have been a really difficult time for her to pull things together. But every indication that we have is just what we would expect, And Holy Mother, just powerhouse, making it through it, and carrying on. Holy Mother ignored the villagers' criticism and continued to wear her bangles and red-bordered sari. The village women went to Prasanamayi, whom everyone respected for her piety and mature judgment, and asked for her opinion of Holy Mother's unorthodox conduct. Prasanamayi, who had insight into Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, said, "Do not criticize either of them. They possess a divine nature." This silenced the villagers for a while. Fortunately, Holy Mother's visions of the Master and his repeated reassurances sustained her and gave her glimpses of her future mission. Holy Mother later said, "At that time, I was having visions of the Master off and on that removed my fear. One day he said, 'Make khichdi and feed me.' Holy Mother understood that the Master and Raghuvir were the same, so she cooked khichdi and offered it to Raghuvir in the shrine while mentally feeding the Master. She described another vision. I was alone in Karmarpur. One day I said to myself, I have no children. There is no one in this world to call my own. What will happen to me? Then the Master appeared to me and said, well, so you're thinking about children. I have left you so many of them, all of them jewels. In the course of time, you will hear many, many people addressing you as mother." For many years, Holy Mother had lived in Dakshineshwar, a few yards away from the bank of the holy river Ganges. In Dakshineshwar, she had seen the scenic beauty of the Ganges day and night from the western veranda of her Nahabad, heard the sweet murmur of the river, and breathed the unpolluted, fresh, and purifying air of Mother Ganges. She had bathed in the Ganges every day, drunk Ganges water, and cooked food with the water of the Ganges. Thus, she had established a strong relationship with Mother Ganga. While living in Karmarpur, she felt nostalgic for the Ganges, and she thought of traveling to Calcutta to bathe in the holy river. Around that time, she had a wonderful vision with her eyes opened, as she explained. I was very nostalgic for the Ganges all along. One day I saw the Master coming toward the house from the direction of Bhuti's canal. He was followed by Naren, Rakal, Baburam, and many other devotees. Further, I saw that a stream of water springing from his feet was flowing in front of him in waves. I realized that the Master was everything. The Ganges had sprung from his feet. I hurriedly picked handfuls of hibiscus flowers from the tree next to the Raghuvir temple and offered them again and again to that holy stream. Later, when Yogin Ma visited Karmarpur, Holy Mother told her about the incident and took her to the place. She told Yogin Ma, the Master was standing at the foot of this Ashwatha tree. When I saw the Master vanish into the body of Narendra, eat a little dust from this holy spot, and bow down. Wow, that's quite a time there. You know, we do these practices of serving God and man, you know, as the highest form of worship. But it's quite staggering and quite challenging to at least my perspective, that at the level of spirituality that Holy Mother was living, that she actually was serving God in man, you know, that she saw God. She saw the deities in these people, just like the Master disappearing into Narendra. So to understand that these things are the reality, you know, so often we call this world unreal, but we're very happy to live in it, completely ignoring that unreality and seeing it as real. And that it's a big exception for us to see the real, to see God, you know, in form, in others, and to have these kinds of witnesses, these visions, these understandings in a real way. But to know that it's not a make believe, you know, when you feed someone with the idea of feeding Thakur, it's not make believe that you're feeding the divine. Jesus said the same. The least, How does it go? If you have served the least of these, you have served me. And so to offer your service to others is a direct worship of God. And it's a really blessed life that can see that and that can thrive on that. Really amazing to ponder that. Think all the times that you thought it was just strangers seeing you, and it was your beloved witnessing you, knowing you.
Swami, see.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, given the inner world is more truth than the outer world, I guess it feels better to just explain this reality as a manifestation of the divine.
Yes.
Just like, really, because it's like, it appears this is a world of opposites. So that also would mimic the inside reality that together the thought and the manifestation, or however you want to call it, is like the being of those worlds of opposites. So
well, the opposites
the
are
reality of
elusive.
God inside is real. You can feed mother, you can feed Thakur, they will receive. That is your spirit. It's just appearing as a body. So it's like experiencing life and love and God in this body feels just as pure as the inside. Just like, when it's dark, it appears dark outside. So it's just like they both seem like just the reality. Like I don't know if it was Holy Mother or who said basically this is real and that is real. They are one and the same, so it's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, when you get to the roof and see that the roof is made out of the same materials that the stairs were leading up to the roof, Thakur says that eventually you see there was no duality at all. And what you come to real when you have realization, what you come to realize is that your body was God. That witness of your body that you thought was you, that your ego had claimed and cut off from God, that was the illusion, that it was God all the time, that there's no difference in reality. We have to be careful with this, because if we start assuming we're God before realization, it can cause a lot of stunted growth. But the fun of it, the beauty of it to me, is that the blinders come off at some point, and you realize that you weren't worshiping God through your body, that God was your body. That in the dream there's no difference between all the elements of the dream, for one, and there's no difference between them as elements and the dreamer, the sleeper. That they all were in fact God. They were not manifestations of it. They were in fact the dreamer. And so it'll be quite a staggering thing, I think, when the blinder comes off and we see the world that way. When we see the Divine Mother everywhere, we see Shiva everywhere, we see Jesus everywhere. We know this world to have been a marvelous divine unfolding of an eternal truth, of an eternal relationship between this changing world and this unchanging absolute which sustains it. That there is one without a second. There's nothing else. These are the highest realizations, but all of our practices point us in that direction. And here we're kind of seeing a halfway stop, where Mother's still doing the practices, still worshiping the image and still doing her pujas, but the statues are talking to her. The divine is appearing to her and telling her, feed me, worship me, and telling her when things are, telling her, oh, well, this afternoon, Gorima is going to come and teach you about this tantra, so that you understand your situation. So you see that this experience is one that I think I'm safe in saying is available to all of us, if we have ears to hear, if we have eyes to see, like Jesus used to, whenever he would tell his parables, he would use that phrase, let he who has ears to hear, hear, let she who has eyes to see, see. And then he would say the parable. And so our eyes, as we transcend through the levels of consciousness, we become aware of things less and less gross. We start to see the actual subtle nature of everything. And in that, like Holy Mother is experiencing, we see a direct interaction between us and God. It's no longer symbolic. It's no longer done with imagination. It's seen and felt and known in an amazing, really what I think is an amazing way here. It was probably during the Jagadatri worship in the fall of 1887 that Holy Mother visited Jairambati for 3 or 4 days. Shyama Sundari burst into tears when she saw her daughter wearing a torn sari. After the worship, she insisted that Holy Mother stay with her in Jairambati. Holy Mother declined, saying, "I am now going back to Karmarpur. We shall see what the Lord ordains for me." So she wouldn't stay home because Thakur had told her to stay in Karmarpur. So she, considered him her guru, considered him God actually, but her guru, and so would never break her obedience to that. Although Ramakrishna's nephews and niece lived in Dakshineshwar, they occasionally visited Karmarpur, especially during the harvest season, so they could get their share of the crop. At this point, Holy Mother was part of the joint family, and Ramlal, as the head of the family, was obligated to take care of her. Lakshmi mostly lived in Dakshineshwar, and she moved around with her disciples. When she visited Karmarpur, she would entertain the villagers through her singing kirtan and dancing. The bashful mother felt very uncomfortable in such situations. Shivaram was a simple, gentle, and unassertive person. He was fond of Holy Mother, who was a sort of godmother to him, and he maintained a good relationship with her. However, he had no power to make decisions about family matters. Ramlal was indifferent and even a little hostile toward Holy Mother, and considered her a burden. This is why we purify our mind. This is why we purify our mind. You can see that a mind can get into a situation where taking care of God as mother is a burden. So this, another encouragement, do your practice, do your practice, do your practice, so that this doesn't happen. Once, Holy Mother went to see her mother in Jairambati. During her absence, Ramlal came to Karmarpur and made drastic changes in the affairs of the family. He partitioned the family home and made arrangements for the worship of the family deity. He left the master's cottage to Holy Mother and gave the master's portion of the rice crop to her. Then Ramlal and his siblings abruptly left for Dakshineshwar. Previously, it was a joint family, but without consulting with Holy Mother, Ramlal took a unilateral action. Holy Mother was terribly hurt. She felt alone and helpless. Her husband's relatives had deserted her. She saw the ugly, selfish, cruel, unsympathetic, and ungrateful side of human nature. Ramlal had forgotten that he had been hired as a priest in Dakshineshwar Kali temple because of Ramakrishna. It is painful for a mother to see her daughter in adverse circumstances. Shyama Sundari had to do something. She knew that the master had many devotees in Calcutta who could help her daughter, so he contacted her eldest son, Prasanna Kumar, and was earning his livelihood in Calcutta as a priest. He went to Dakshineshwar and remonstrated with Ramlal and about abandoning his aunt. He also visited Golap Ma and told her that his sister was living in Karmarpur in such poverty that she wore torn clothing and had no salt for her food. Golap Ma took the matter seriously and immediately informed Yogan Ma, who was her neighbor. That afternoon, Golap Ma, Yogan Ma, and Krishna Bhavani, Balaram's wife, met to discuss how to rescue Holy Mother from that terrible situation. Balaram informed the master's monastic disciples at Varanagore. They were very upset, but helpless to assist her, as they were then also living on alms. Golap Ma then told Girish Ghosh, Kalipada Ghosh, Dr. Shashi Bhusan Ghosh, and M about Holy Mother's situation. Everyone agreed to help and to bring Holy Mother to Calcutta. On March 5th, 1888, M went to Karmarpur and arranged for Holy Mother's needs according to his means. So what a wonderful thing. See, as soon as the devotees find out, they all team up and cooperate together and work on that. Well, these are wonderful, wonderful little pieces of what it is to be a Sangha, you know. Really lots of little hints in here that will help us to not only be people of love, but to be a Sangha of love, you know, that we can use each other's resources and use each other's hearts to do good, to do what should be done, to do what is right, to really keep that in our mind, to really keep that in our heart.
Maharaj, at this point, they are the householder devotees.
Yes, all the householder devotees. Yeah, because the monks, you know, the boys, they were all living in a broken down, haunted house, dilapidated house, abandoned, you know, as a monastery, and they were going out and begging their food, and they also didn't have money for salt for their foods, and just lived on rice and a very liquidy dal for days at a time, you know, sometimes even missing food. But, you know, they didn't care too much. They were young men, you know, they could take care of themselves. They could endure those things. Holy Mother was older, you know, and was having to live a life supporting herself. So it was quite a difficult situation. In the early part of it,
Maharaj, one question, I just can't imagine, like it was her own relatives, Ma's own relatives. You know, she looked after Ramlal and Lakshmi Didi and, you know, so much. And in return, it's her own relatives that mistreated her.
Yeah. You know, that's what I was saying, you know. It just shows us how in danger we are of losing proper vision, losing proper understanding if we get caught up in the world, you know, caught up in our own spheres and our own problems and our own troubles, and we no longer see ourselves as servants. You know, this is what comes of it. So yeah, fortunately, it's being resolved. You know, fortunately, they're pulling together, and it's different from this point forward. So in the early part of 1888, Krishna Bhavani went to Anandpur to visit her mother, Matangini, who was a wealthy woman. Both women were very devoted to the Master and Holy Mother. As the distance between Anandpur and Karmarpur was only a few miles, they went to Karmarpur with a Brahmin girl and a trusted man to pay a surprise visit to Holy Mother. She was delighted to see them. As the wife of a wealthy man, Krishna Bhavani was able to give sufficient money to the Holy Mother for food and other necessities. After staying for 3 days in Karmarpur, they went with Holy Mother to Jairambati, where they stayed for another 3 days. Holy Mother could not hide her condition from the eyes of the Master's loving devotees. After returning to Calcutta, Krishna Bhavani and Matangini reported their observations to the other women devotees. They all decided to bring Holy Mother to Calcutta. The Master's disciples wrote to Holy Mother asking her to come to Calcutta. It was painful for the devotees to hear that the Holy Mother was enduring poverty, loneliness, caste rules, and criticism. In a small village, public opinion is more powerful than providence. Society is bound by social rules and norms. If an individual's way of life is not approved of by the society's leaders, that person becomes an outcast. In Karmarpur, the Laha family was wealthy and influential, and Prasanna Mai belonged to that family. When the village women learned that the young disciples of the master had invited Holy Mother to live in Calcutta, some remarked, "How can she live with those young men?" Others said, "It is all right for her to move to Calcutta. Those boys are her disciples." Holy Mother wanted to know Prasanna Mai's opinion. So she asked the maidservant who stayed with her at night to speak to Prasanna Mai on her behalf. Prasanna Mai told the maid, "Gadai, Ramakrishna, his disciples are the children of his wife. They are eager to serve their mother in Calcutta. She should go." "But some women of the village disapprove of this arrangement," the maid replied. Prasanna Mai responded, "What do they know about Gadai's wife? She is their mother. She must go. I will face those women." After the maid told Holy Mother of Prasanna Mai's opinion, Holy Mother went to see her. Prasanna Mai told her, "Why are you hesitating? Of course you must go to Calcutta. Ramakrishna's disciples are your own children. Do not listen to the village gossip. Surely you should go." Holy Mother then went to Jairambati to get another opinion. The villagers of Jairambati had already heard that Holy Mother was moving to Calcutta. Holy Mother told her mother, "The disciples of the Master want me to go to Calcutta. They will make all the arrangements as soon as they get my consent. Now I have to come to Jairambati for your opinion. Should I go or should I not?" Shyama Sundari said, "I'm an ordinary woman. Let me consult with other villagers." Holy Mother's brother, Prasanna Kumar, had told the villagers how some wealthy women in Calcutta loved and respected his sister and served her as they would their mother. The villagers of Jairambati loved Holy Mother, so they did not create any problem for her. Moreover, they thought that Holy Mother's wealthy devotees might help to improve their village. They approved of the move, and in May 1888, Holy Mother went to stay in Balaram's house in Calcutta for a short time. She then moved to Belur, where the devotees had rented a house for her. So see all of this going on, but you see how Mother is so, so self-deprecating. She is so careful about doing what is right, that there's, all these people who were giving her so much of a hard time, she didn't respect them and just be like, "Poof, I'm getting out of here, you losers. I'm going to Calcutta, where I belong." She didn't discount any of their sentiment. She listened to it and wanted to be sure that she was doing the right thing. That's a real lesson in surrender right there. It's something you learn in the monastery quite a bit. I'm now laughing nervously as I think about myself here in Colorado, because I've kind of escaped that, out from under that thumb a little bit. But I remember, especially as a brahmachari, you didn't do anything without permission. You didn't. Showing initiative was not an encouraged thing. You did what you were told, and you did it how you were told to do it, and it didn't matter whether it made sense to you or not. I got a few little arguments, with Vedananda because of the way he wanted things done. And I always, for most of my younger life, I always thought I knew best. So I was quite a problem monk at times. But you see, this is the kind of humility that we should have, this willingness to make sure that we're doing what's right and to look for opinions and get people's insight. Even some of the people who you may not think deserve an opinion, Mother listened to their opinion and went to several.
Is it also to tame the ego?
Oh, it's only to tame the ego. Yeah, no, all of these rules, all of these rules that Holy Mother had to obey, and that at least in their initiation, they're designed to keep your mind on God, to diminish ego. All of the cultural injunctions in Hinduism, and this is just my own outsider looking in opinion on it, but after being around it for a good 25 years now, I'm of the opinion that all of these rules initially were there to put your mind on God. I think that culture over time began to think that the rules in and of themselves were important, you know, that God actually cared whether you wore shoes in the kitchen or not. And so began to enforce these rules independent of their reason, independent of their of the why. And the why was just to practice mindfulness, to practice presence, to practice serving God in a real way. All the rules in the kitchen were so that you wouldn't just mindlessly get in and just start throwing things together. There was a way to do things, and you had to think about it, and you had to be methodical about it. And there were rituals that had to be obeyed, and there were customs that had to be obeyed. And all of them were there just for that, for really keeping your mind active and engaged and present on what you were doing. And the fact that you're doing all of this for God, you know, that when you're cooking in the kitchen, you're not cooking for your family. In a very real way, you're cooking for God. And so all of your vessels should maintain a certain level of purity. All of your utensils should be kept in a respectful and clean kind of way. Everything treated as if it was sacred, or recognizing that it is sacred and acting accordingly. You know, the way that all of those things. And in our own lives, you know, that's why I say even in your practice, you know, your practice is for realization, you know, and your realization exists in you now. And so live accordingly, you know, with those kinds of expectations, you know.
No, so Swamiji, so when Reena Didi is saying to tame the ego, so Ma was asking all these people, basically it was to tame her ego?
Well, it would have been, but her ego was long ago tamed. So she was doing it just as a matter of course, because that's, you know, that's the way she was. She really didn't have the danger of being egotistical because of who she was and because of her life. But yes, you know, because she had no ego, she did all of these things. You and I do these same things, mimicking her as such, in order to break our ego. But she didn't have to do it for that because she already had no ego, so she naturally did that. That's a way a humble person acts. That's the way somebody free of egoism acts. You know, they're concerned about different people's ideas and concerned about.
But you know, it's funny, Swamiji, if you go and ask people now, they'll say, why are you asking us? Don't you have a mind of your own?
Yeah. Well, you know, that's kind of culturally American. You know, we're the opposite here. We want independence. Think for yourself. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, who cares what others think about you? You go and do what you think is right. And you know, both of them have their benefits. But neither one of them is good for you without the spiritual element. That's the thing. You know, you can go around and become completely a slave to all of your cultural rituals, but if you don't have the thought of God behind them, what's the point? You're just a fancy cow who's learned to dance in a particular way, you know. And the same in in this Western culture, you know, if you try and do it all on your own, you're just working yourself into a very lonely place, a very isolated place. And so even in that, we should be in the company of God. Yeah, be bold. Vivekananda loved that Western boldness, and he encouraged it. But you do it from the presence of God. You do it from the company of God. You know, knowing that you're a hero because God is the hero in you.
Right.
You know,
Thank you, Swamiji.
like that. Priya doesn't want to be a lonely cow. I don't want you to be a lonely cow either, Priya. So, all right. So she does get to go to Calcutta, and now the devotees all know her situation. So things improve greatly for her at this point. We'll go ahead and stop at this point. It's a major section, and pick up again here next week.